Hi, and good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, depending on what time zone you're in. This is Mike Blake, and I'm back with a Clarity Live segment here. So a scenario that I encounter quite a bit is, people who just got an offer to buy their business, and it's kind of an interesting psychological place to be because I think as confident as many entrepreneurs and small business people and not so small business people are, I think they're genuinely surprised when somebody wants to buy their business. But what do you do when you're kind of cooking along, you're minding your own business, and all of a sudden there's an email or a phone call or a text or some sort of message? This really comes down to seven questions. And the first question really can be broken out of two, but they are the same question. And I can't answer this for any client. Do I want to sell? How badly do you want to sell? Um, Lots of people love running their businesses. Lots of people's sense of personal value, of identity, is wrapped up in their business. And for some people, and this doesn't make them bad people, this is just how they are in the relationship they have with their business. Um, Walking away from their business is like cutting off a limb. And if you as an owner kind of feel that way, feel that connected to your business, you're probably not ready to sell. If you feel like the you've only scratched the surface of the business's potential, you feel like you're just getting started, and that's what often happens. Just as the business starts to get interesting, that's when it starts to attract attention. Nobody wants to buy it during the tough times, right? They want to buy it when things get good. Well, you kind of feel like you've earned that. You've earned that right and that opportunity to run the business when things are going well, and you don't want to get rid of it. That's okay. Um, or alternatively, maybe you've been thinking about selling for a long time. Maybe you want to spend more time with your family, or on the golf course, or crocheting, or playing contract bridge, or whatever it is that your other passions are. You want to spend more time with your church. You want to spend more time with charities. Spend more time in the political area. Um, that's a decision that you just sort of have to make personally, and maybe there are issues like health that force you to think about selling, even if all other things held constant, you wouldn't necessarily go down that path. So, but I would say this: most of the time, don't waste your time, don't waste anybody else's time to sell, unless part of you really does want to sell. you know I know that there's a line of reasoning that says, well, happy with my business. But you know what? If you come in and blow me away with an offer, I'll listen to it. That doesn't often happen, frankly. It happens more on TV and the movies and YouTube videos than it happens in real life. Does it happen in real life? Sure. But be aware that that's the exception, not the rule. And then, how do you know if it's a serious offer? Um, I can't tell you how much work I've talked myself out of, and correctly so. When a prospect or a client calls me up and they say, "Hey, this person called me up and they sound really legit, and I think they want to buy my business," and you sort of dig a little further, and maybe they're not, right? And by now, most of us should kind of be used to this phenomenon because most of us who are homeowners are receiving calls every day from somebody who wants to buy our house. They're going to come by with a truck full of cash, and they're going to just back it up the driveway, and bang, we're going to sell our house, right? And if you're like us, we hang up on those calls, right? It's not serious, right? And dialing for dollars really isn't a serious activity that's undertaken by most companies, most serious acquirers. there's some private equity firms that do that. They'll kind of stick some interns or first year analysts in front of the phone and have them dial for dollars. But even then, um, I just don't see that as a path to a deal getting done. The same thing with just emails, unsolicited cold emails. I just don't see them as a path to things getting done. And maybe somebody who's going to come on and make a comment and say that I'm all wet, and those things happen all the time. But I just don't see it. To me, an offer is serious when somebody shows up in person. They make an appointment to see you. Maybe it's at your place of business. More likely, they're going to take you to lunch or dinner or drinks or something, or a ball game or some other event. And they're going to set the conversation up that way. And most likely, it's going to be that connection is going to be made through a warm introduction from somebody that you mutually know, like, and trust. And if you don't have that warm introduction, I just treat those offers, frankly, with a great deal of skepticism. Now, if you get past those two hurdles, then I think you have to start to think about how much is the business worth, right? If someone were going to buy your house, you'd at least look online to see what other houses like yours are selling for in the neighborhood. If you're going to sell your car, you'd at least look up a Kelly Blue Book value. And given that for most people who own a business, the business is their most significant financial asset, having an understanding of what the value of that asset is worth is just critical to having productive conversations. And I know this is self-serving. I know what I do. I know what I do for a living. But at the same token, I've seen. I've worked in venture capital before. I've worked in investment banking before, and I've seen how many deals just get completely blasted. And frankly, the seller's reputation takes a hit because they have an unrealistic expectation of what their business is worth. Um, and people's time and money get wasted. And when that happens, it's very hard to resurrect those conversations. Conversely, I run into just as many people who undervalue their businesses as overvalue them. I run into just as many people who say that I just don't think my business is worth anything, so there's no reason to get into this conversation. And once you really start crunching numbers and studying the business, it becomes clear there is value here. And even if the value is not maybe maximized with that particular seller, there's a value thesis that is going to be compelling to another buyer. Um, and so understanding not just what the business's value is, but why is critical, and that why is what makes you an informed negotiator. And I'm going to share with you kind of my very simple very simple paradigm of negotiation. That negotiation, at the end of the day, has two dimensions. One is asymmetry of information, and the second is who has the power to walk away and walk away first. And when you know those things, you can be an effective negotiator. If you know that you have an easy path to walk away, then you know how hard you can negotiate. If you know what the alternatives are, which is the information asymmetry. If you know that if I don't sell to this buyer, there are five other buyers that could credibly pay top dollar for this company, that's going to make you a better negotiator as well. You're going to be more willing to stick up for yourself and the value for your business. And make no mistake, that value is not given, it is earned. It is something that is fought for, and it's something that is struggled for. And that value analysis will tell you whether or not now is the right time to sell. Um, all businesses go through their ups and downs in terms of their value on a given month, year, week. The value changes are not as visible as they are in the public markets, but they are there. And so timing does matter. And although I'm not a huge fan of timing the market, um, I am a very big fan of timing yourself. Meaning, once you analyze and take a hard, cold, long look at what the value of your business um, is the business in the right shape to sell? And if it's not, are there things that you could fairly easily fix? Do you have a lawsuit that you could settle? Right, lawsuits are make it very hard. Nobody wants to. I've never met anybody that wants to buy a lawsuit. Not one. Right, that's very tough to overcome. Right, do you have customer concentration issues? Do you have key people that are not under any kind of stay bonus? I wouldn't advocate trying to put them under a non compete. It's becoming increasingly dicey in terms of how enforceable those are, and in a lot of cases, good people won't sign them anyway. They certainly won't sign them after they've been employed. You're better off giving them a stay bonus of some kind. um, are your vendor relationships in a row? Do you have well documented processes? Do you have the right people in the right seats? Is your market positioning right? Have your recent reviews by customers been good? Some of those things you can fix in a fairly short period of time, others you can't. um, but you may want to sell after you fix those things and get a higher price and try to sell now and make those somebody else's problem. And you think about a car that you're trying to sell. In many cases, you're going to put a fresh set of tires on that car, because if the new buyer has to buy tires in addition, um, they aren't just going to make you knock off the price of the tires. They're going to make you knock off a little bit more because the buyer has to go through the hassle of putting tires in the car in the first place, right? So the right time to sell the car is after you put the new tires on, after you get the thing vacuumed and detailed and waxed and you pound the dents out, right? Not the way that it is. And a business, timing the sale of a business is very similar. How do you make sure you don't get screwed? And I thought of trying to find a more professional way of saying that. And I thought of 8 different ways, but none of them really get the point across the way that this does. Um, it's really easy to get screwed when you sell a business, and not just on price. Price is actually the easy part. My job is easy, putting a number on the business value. The hard part, the hard part is the terms, right? And a mentor told me years ago. Her name is Karen Robinson. She told me years ago. I've never forgotten this. It's so profound. She said, when I was an angel investor, I would let companies name almost any valuation they wanted as long as I get to name the terms. And that's so right. And not all 10 million deals are built alike. And so the best way to make sure that you don't get screwed when you sell a business is to have a good team around you that is going to help you. You should have a financial person on the team. Could be somebody like us, could be somebody else. You need to have at least one good lawyer on your team. You need to have a good CPA on your team, in particular a tax advisor. But you may also want a CPA to kind of comb through your books, comb through your numbers, to find any potential financial and accounting red flags before a buyer finds them. Because I can tell you, the impact on the deal is far less if we find them in advance as opposed to the buyer finding them. So the key there is, make sure you have the right team involved, and also on that team needs to be a good financial advisor. I'm not a financial advisor. I do hold the CFA charter, so I do have some training in that area. But I'm not telling anybody how to make investments. I'm not telling anybody what stock to pick or how to allocate assets. Absolutely not. do it for myself, but that's it. And there are great people out there who have devoted their lives and have devoted significant investment of time and money into training themselves how to be great financial advisors. And they're going to tell you the answer to one of the most important questions that I think often gets overlooked, which is, can you afford to sell your business? And what I mean by that is your business may well be being priced fairly or even generously by the potential buyer. And maybe the terms are plain vanilla or even skilled and or even skewed in your direction as a seller. But there does come a time when you have to kind of meet brass tacks and say, okay, I have these objectives in my life post business ownership. With the amount of money that I'm likely to receive in this transaction, can I afford to meet those objectives? Can I retire? Can I pay for my kids' education? Can I fulfill the philanthropic goals that I have? Can I buy a solid gold house in the middle of an Iowa cornfield, right? Or can I build my very own baseball field that attracts shoeless Joe Jackson and the 1919 Black Sox, right? Whatever it is that you want to do, right? It may not matter that you're getting a generous price for your business today if selling it kind of just leaves you incapable of meeting your financial goals and objectives. So working with financial planner and having a financial plan to understand what that life financially looks like in a post-sale scenario or multiple post-sale scenarios, I think is absolutely critical. And as a corollary to that, in the final question, what are you going to do with that money? You're going to be handed a check. What's your plan, right? And one of the kind of interesting subtleties about selling a business is that when you do that, you go instantly from being a seller, i.e., the asset of your business, to a buyer. Unless you're planning on taking your cash and stuffing it under your mattress or under your pillow, you need to do something with that cash, right? What is your investment plan to generate the returns that are appropriate based on your risk tolerance or your risk profile? Um, and again, I think I don't think that the right answer is you sell your business, you meet in the law firm to sign all the closing docs, you confirm the money has been released into escrow or out of escrow to you, and you walk out and you step out into the sidewalk and watch the traffic go by and breathe a big sigh of relief and wonder, what the heck am I going to do next? I think you should have that planned out. There's no reason you can't have that planned out. So those are the 7 questions I would ask before I entertain selling a business. If you do receive that offer to buy your business, good for you. Even if it is a boiler room, at least somebody's looking at you, right? I do come from the school that says, well, it's always nice to be asked. And at some point, if you're asked enough, the right buyer is going to ask you, and that's going to put you in a position to have that successful sale and that you're ready to go for it. And it's okay to say that you're just not ready to sell your business yet. There's a saying that is old, but it bears repeating. Sometimes the best deal is the one that you don't make. So with that, I'm going to pause and see if anybody out there watching has any questions.